The smartest person in the room never has to speak to shake it. Just one look from them and everyone starts acting different. That's you, the one who doesn't need to shout to be heard. Your energy speaks louder than their ego ever could. You walk into a room and suddenly people start watching their words, doubting their moves, second-guessing their own thoughts. Not because you said anything, but because your silence feels like it sees right through them. That's what happens when your mind is a weapon and your intuition is the trigger. You're not just sharp, you're surgical. And that terrifies them. Think about it. Most people move through life blindfolded, reacting, copying, guessing. You feel things before they happen. You read rooms like books, decode body language like subtitles, and sense lies before the liar even gets comfortable. It's not just intelligence, it's inner sight. While others trust what's in front of them, you trust what's behind it. That alone makes you a threat. Your vibe isn't just smart, it's unsettling to them, because you're the kind of smart that can't be controlled, the kind of intuition that exposes people without needing evidence. And the truth is, people would rather hate you than admit they're scared of how right you always are. And thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe buttons to help spread this truth to more souls. It's not just support, it's a responsibility. We're here to wake people up, to light the way for others who've been doubting themselves. So thank you for being part of this mission. You are part of a force that doesn't follow trends, it sets them. Now, let's get back to the truth. The uncomfortable, unspoken truth that most people don't want to admit. You're very smart, and they all know it. Not the book smart, regurgitate facts kind of smart. That's child's play. You're intuitively smart, spiritually surgical, energetically aware. You see through people like glass. And that kind of intelligence, it doesn't make people clap, it makes them panic. That's why they act weird around you. That's why people who once loved being around you suddenly pull back. You didn't change. You uncovered too much. You said too little and saw too much. You didn't call them out, but your energy made them look in the mirror, and they hated what they saw. Your presence alone forces people to confront themselves. Most people aren't ready for that. They're used to being surrounded by yes men, by people who miss red flags, by people who need permission to think. But you don't need permission. You don't need proof. You just know. And they hate that about you. You notice the little shifts, the way they flinched when you looked at them too long, the way they got uncomfortable when you stayed quiet during their performance. That wasn't nothing. That was intuition locking onto the target. You don't react emotionally, you observe silently, and that scares them more than anger ever could. You don't fall for masks, you sense motives. While they're trying to manipulate the surface, you're already 10 layers deep, dismantling their lies before they're fully formed. That's why they label you intense, too much, paranoid. It's projection, because they feel seen, too seen. You were built this way on purpose. Your intelligence isn't an accident. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's radar. You pick up on what's not said, and that's why they can't fool you. The truth is, you've made people nervous just by existing. You've walked into rooms where fake confidence collapsed. Why? Because your presence held a mirror, and they couldn't lie in front of it. You intimidate people who are hiding things. That's the raw truth, and the more you evolve, the louder their discomfort gets. But don't ever shrink because of it. Because your gift, it's needed now more than ever. This world doesn't need more noise, it needs more knowers. And you, chosen one, are the kind of knower that makes false ones crumble. They'll try to gaslight you, make you question what you saw, make you second-guess your gut. Why? Because if you stop trusting yourself, they can finally breathe again. But don't fall for it. Every time you trusted your gut, you were right. Every time you felt something was off, it was. They just hoped you'd ignore it, but you didn't. You saw it, and that's what triggered their fear. Understand this. People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't control. And they can't control your mind. They can't guess what you're thinking, and that unpredictability makes them nervous. Because most people feel powerful when they can manipulate others, but you're immune to that. You see the strings before they pull them. You cut the pattern before it even forms. Your intelligence isn't about test scores or degrees. It's about awareness. It's the way you walk into chaos and pick out the one thing no one noticed. It's the way you say something small and it hits like thunder. It's the way you keep your peace, but your silence speaks louder than their arguments. That's real power. And real power doesn't need to perform. Let them talk. Let them say you're too deep, too intense, too suspicious. That's fine. Let them think you're weird, but watch how they always come back for your advice. Watch how they copy your thoughts. Watch how they sit in rooms and repeat the things you said months ago, like it was their idea. They don't respect you out loud, but they follow you in silence. That's how you know you've already won. You weren't meant to be understood by the masses. You were meant to awaken them. That's why your mind works differently. That's why you get those deep thoughts at 2 a.m. That's why you feel things before they're confirmed. You're wired for a different kind of truth. And the people who fear that, well, they're the ones you were never meant to follow anyway. They try to downplay your wisdom because it makes them feel small. But real ones, they know, they see the light in you, they feel the energy shift when you speak. That's why your words stay in people's heads. That's why people remember your silences longer than others' speeches. You're not average. You never were. And the more you step into this truth, the more enemies you'll attract. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. When you stop doubting your own intelligence and start moving with certainty, the world starts moving differently around you. The masks start falling, the snakes start running, and the truth starts speaking through your presence. You're not just smart. You're dangerous to lies. You're lethal to manipulation. You're toxic to illusion. And that's why they fear you. So keep trusting that mind. Keep listening to that voice inside that whispers before the storm. It's not paranoia, it's precision. And they know it. They've always known it. Now let them watch. Let them wonder how you knew. Let them lose sleep over the fact that you were right all along. And you? Sleep peacefully, chosen one. Because when your intelligence is paired with unshakable intuition, you don't chase truth, you become it. And hey, chosen one, if your intuition led you here, trust it enough to stay. This message wasn't made for the average. It was crafted for minds like yours, minds that see through the noise. If you've ever felt like people were weirdly uncomfortable around your intelligence, or like your quiet instincts exposed things nobody else noticed, yeah, this is for you. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you're done dimming your brilliance just to make others feel safe. And if this message hits home, consider fueling the mission with a super thanks. It's your way of saying, keep the truth coming. Every bit counts, because real truth isn't cheap, and we're just getting warmed up. Now, take a deep breath, because what's coming next will hit deeper than you expect. Let's break it down, step by step. Let's go. Number 1. They thought you were quiet. Turns out you were calculating. The ones they call quiet aren't weak. They're the ones watching everything you thought you hid. They thought you were just the quiet one, the reserved one, the one they could overlook, underestimate, and play in front of like you couldn't see through them. But here's the gut-punch truth. They never realized that silence wasn't your weakness. It was your weapon. You weren't quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you were studying everything. You were clocking patterns, reading energy, logging red flags, and letting them run their mouth just long enough to expose their true self. And when it hit them that you weren't slow, you were 10 steps ahead, they panicked, because your confidence doesn't announce itself. It moves like smoke, quiet, but in every room. It doesn't need the spotlight to shine. You don't bark orders or flex your wins. You just move smart. And it drives people crazy. They keep trying to provoke you, bait you, test you, thinking if they push the right button, they'll finally get proof that you're not as rare as you seem. But every time they try, you pass without even trying. That's when it hits them. You're not performing for approval. You're operating on a frequency they can't reach. Ever wonder why they always challenge you without reason? Why they throw shade out of nowhere? It's not random. It's insecurity. It's the fear that you know more than you show. And they're right to be afraid, because you do. You notice tone shifts. You catch side glances. You hear what wasn't said. You don't just listen with ears. You listen with instinct. While they're trying to lie with their face, your gut already decoded the truth. And that unnerves them more than any confrontation ever could. Your intelligence doesn't scream, it simmers. It's in the way you pause before you speak. It's in the way you say just enough to let them know you're aware. You don't expose people out loud, but your presence reveals them. That's the kind of power people either deeply respect or secretly hate. And the ones who hate it, they'll try to twist it, call you distant, call you arrogant, say you think you're better. But the truth? They're mad that you're not begging to be accepted by them. You're not walking around trying to prove your worth, and that's what threatens them, because they're used to people needing validation, needing attention, needing approval. But you're built different. You don't need the room to clap. You don't even need the room. You are the room. And that truth sits heavy on their chest every time you walk in. So the next time they call you quiet, just smirk. Because what they call silence is actually strategy. What they call distance is actually discernment. What they fear is not that you're invisible, it's that you're unstoppable without ever having to make noise. They tested you because they hoped you were average, but every test just proved you were exceptional. And now they're scared of what you'll do next. Because a quiet mind with loud intuition, that's a storm you never see coming until it's already destroyed everything fake. Number 2, you read people like books, and they're terrified of what you know. The scariest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who sees everything and says nothing. You don't need a degree to read energy. You need awareness, and most people can't afford it. People hate when you figure them out faster than they figured themselves out. Your intuition didn't come from school. It came from survival. Let's make one thing clear. You're not just smart. You're perceptive. You don't wait for people to explain themselves, because by the time they start talking, you already know what they're about. You're the silent reader in a world full of shallow performers. While they decorate their words with fake smiles and polished personas, you're sitting there decoding the real message. Body language, tone, hesitation, eye movement. You're not guessing, you're seeing, and that terrifies people. Ever notice how they get awkward when you make eye contact a second too long? Or how they laugh too quickly around you, trying to seem unbothered? That's not confidence, it's panic, because deep down they feel you can read them. And the truth is, you can. You walk into a workplace or a friend group, and within days, you already know who's fake, who's power-hungry, who's insecure, and who's playing both sides. You don't need someone to gossip to you. You already sensed it in the room. The way someone talks over others, the way their smile doesn't reach their eyes, the way their energy shifts when you succeed. These aren't random observations. These are warning signs, red flags, codes, and you're a master at cracking them. Imagine this. You're in a room full of people, and everyone's trying to impress each other with surface talk, money, status, shallow charm. But you're quiet, calm, scanning, noticing, and while everyone else is focused on image, you're picking up truth. You notice the person whose voice shakes when talking about their achievements. You notice the friend who cheers for you but looks away a second too fast. You see who claps when you win, and who waits until the applause dies down to show their real face. That's your gift. You were born to read between the lines, so of course they question your intelligence. Of course they try to discredit you. They say things like, "What school did you go to?" or "Where'd you learn all this?" because they can't stand that you figured out in seconds what took them years to fake. They think intelligence must come with credentials, but real intelligence, it doesn't come with a degree, it comes with depth. You learn through watching, through surviving, through absorbing pain most people would never recover from. You didn't get your wisdom from textbooks. You got it from being burned and betrayed, and still coming out sharper. That kind of knowledge doesn't come from classrooms. It comes from life. From being the one who noticed the shift in tone before the betrayal. The one who felt the energy change before the words ever did. That's not taught. That's earned. So no, you don't always speak up in meetings. You don't always jump into conversations, because you're not looking to impress. You're looking to understand. And once you understand the room, you know how to move. That's why they call you quiet. That's why they say you're hard to read, because you don't overshare. You withhold. And the less you reveal, the more they panic. Imagine someone standing in front of a glass wall, thinking they're protected, until they realize you're on the other side of it, seeing everything. That's what your presence feels like. They can't hide behind charm, manipulation, or image. You see through it like glass. And the worst part for them? You don't expose them publicly. You just know, and knowing without reacting. That's real power. You've probably asked yourself, why do people act different around me? Or why do I feel drained in some rooms? The answer? You're absorbing what others miss. You're not just hearing what people say, you're catching what they mean. And your energy, your knowing, disrupts their illusions. You become the mirror they didn't ask for, but suddenly can't avoid. They feel vulnerable around you because you make them aware of their own masks. You force them to confront the parts of themselves they've been hiding, even from themselves. And instead of growing, most people just resent the person who sees too much. That's why they downplay your gifts. That's why they say you're too sensitive, too deep, too serious. Because it's easier for them to label you than to level up to your perception. You're not too much. You're just too real, and real always threatens the fake. Imagine being a flashlight in a room full of moths. They swarm you, attracted to your glow, but the moment you shine too bright, they scatter. That's what you've been dealing with. People who love you until they realize they can't lie around you. People who admire you until your clarity exposes their chaos. But don't dim yourself to keep them comfortable. Because the truth is, your gift isn't just for you, it's for protection. It's why you avoided disasters before they happened. It's why you walked away from perfect situations that just didn't feel right. That wasn't fear. That was your inner radar, your inner wisdom, and it's never been wrong, has it? Every time you doubted it, you paid the price. And every time you trusted it, You were saved. That's not coincidence. That's divine intelligence, channeled through your instincts. The universe didn't give you this perception for decoration. It gave it to you for discernment. So the next time someone tries to make you feel small for just knowing things, remember, a lion doesn't explain its instincts to sheep. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them feel threatened, because you're not here to fit into broken systems or stroke fragile egos. You're here to see clearly and move accordingly. And believe this, your presence alone makes people rethink their intentions, not because you're judging them, but because you can't be fooled. And in a world built on illusions, that makes you rare, that makes you powerful. So keep reading people, keep trusting that instinct, keep making them nervous without saying a word. Because you weren't made to blend in with the blind, you were made to walk with your eyes wide open. And anyone who fears that clarity was probably hiding something from the start. Number 3, you didn't learn it. You lived it. Some people study wisdom in books, others earn it bleeding. They want to know where you got your intelligence from, what school, what job, what degree, because they can't wrap their heads around the idea that someone could be this sharp without wearing a fancy label. But they're asking the wrong questions. You didn't learn like they did. You survived. You didn't memorize formulas. You decoded reality. You didn't sit in lectures. You sat in silence, trying to make sense of betrayal, chaos, and pain. And somehow, you did. That's not textbook wisdom. That's battle-scarred brilliance. See, most people get their knowledge handed to them. You earned every ounce, through nights that broke your spirit but built your vision, through betrayals that shattered your trust but sharpened your instincts, through losses that taught you what no win ever could. You're not just smart, you're forged. You didn't get clarity handed to you, you dug it out of the dirt. Imagine someone trying to explain heartbreak to you using theory when you've already buried pieces of yourself in places no one even knows about. Imagine someone lecturing you on strategy when you've had to outthink people just to survive emotionally. That's what makes your intelligence dangerous. You don't just know things, you understand them, you feel them. You've been through the fire and came out with a blueprint. And that's why people either admire you or can't stand you. They feel it when you speak. There's weight behind your words, calm in your logic, a presence that says, I've seen worse and I'm still here. And the scary part for them, you never asked for power. You just became powerful. You don't try to lead. People just start following. You don't try to teach, but people can't help but learn from how you move. They confuse quietness with weakness, but what they don't see is everything happening beneath the surface. You're not loud because you're processing, connecting dots, pulling wisdom from memories and moments that most people would have buried. You're not rushing to be seen because you've already seen enough. That kind of awareness creates gravity. And gravity, it pulls people in whether you want it to or not. So when someone questions you, don't get defensive, smile, because their doubt just reveals how shallow their own understanding is. You don't need to explain yourself to people who only speak theory. You speak from scars. And scars, those are the credentials that never fade. You know what's real. You know what matters. You don't just recite knowledge. You embody it. That's why rooms shift when you speak. That's why people pause when you enter, because they can feel that you're not faking it. You're not guessing. You've lived what they're still Googling. Let them flaunt their titles. Let them worship their resumes. Meanwhile, you'll keep doing what you do, making sense out of chaos, with nothing but your experience, your pain, and your unmatched perception. That's real intelligence. and they know it. Number 4, you shake the shallow, just by existing. They call it vibes. You call it awareness. They feel disturbed, and you haven't said a word. Your presence alone is a disruption, not because you're loud, not because you demand attention, but because the moment you show up, the masks start slipping. People fidget, they over-explain, they laugh a little too hard. And it's not you doing anything, it's just you being real in a world that's mastered the art of fake. You don't even have to speak. Your stillness is a mirror. And when people catch a glimpse of their own reflection in it, it rattles them. You're not addicted to performance. You don't need applause to know your worth. And that's what throws them off. Because most people are addicted to being seen, while you're focused on seeing. You notice details they brush past. You hear the emotion behind the words. You sit with silence like it's your closest friend. And that alone scares people who live loud, just to hide how empty they feel inside. Ever wonder why certain people seem uncomfortable around you, even when you've done nothing wrong? It's not about what you did, it's about what you reveal. You don't play along with shallow games. You don't laugh to fit in. You're not there to entertain egos or stroke delusions. And because of that, your very presence becomes a threat to their illusion. Imagine a lake that's completely still, clear, calm, untouched. Now imagine someone who's been living in a storm walking up to it. That stillness doesn't relax them, it exposes them. That's you. You are the calm that makes chaos uncomfortable. You are the clarity that disturbs confusion. And it has nothing to do with trying to be wise. It's just who you are. And let's be honest, they hate how often you're right. They wonder how you just know things. But they'll never admit the truth. Your mind is quiet enough to hear what theirs blocks out. You don't guess, you observe. You don't chase gossip, you listen to energy. And you don't need anyone to confirm what you already feel in your gut. That's real wisdom, and it's wrapped in humility so strong, people mistake it for passivity. But you're not passive, you're precise. You don't react because you already know. You don't argue because you already see. While they're busy proving their value to rooms full of strangers, you're letting your presence do all the talking. You're not out here to impress, you're here to impact. And trust me, you already have. Number 5, you're not competing, you're rewriting the frequency. They run races you never signed up for, then wonder why your walk echoes louder than their sprint. While they obsess over who's ahead, you're out here changing the entire rhythm. You're not chasing trends, followers, or cheap wins. You're building timeless resonance. The moment they realize you're not in competition with anyone, they get confused. Because in a world obsessed with comparison, your calm detachment is disruptive. You move at your own tempo, and somehow it still shakes their system. When you speak, it's never just words. Even your simplest sentences carry weight, not because you're trying to be deep, but because you've actually felt life on levels they've never reached. You don't say things to sound wise. You say what's real, and real always hits different. That's why people pause when you speak. That's why even your silence feels loud. You're not here to impress with information. You're here to ignite something they forgot they had. You're not just thinking logically. You're feeling through layers. You sense energy shifts like a weather change. You know when something's off before the first red flag even waves. And that unnerves people who rely only on facts, patterns, and visible signs. Because while they're reacting to what's already happened, you're already positioning for what's next. Imagine a drummer playing in the middle of a marching band, but instead of following the beat, they create their own. That's you. They want to know why you're not syncing with their noise. They think you're out of place, out of sync. but eventually they realize you were never playing their song to begin with. Your rhythm is different because your source is different. You're tuned to higher frequencies, truth, intuition, clarity. And that can't be faked. They try to match your energy, but they can't decode your stillness. They try to copy your style, but they don't understand your substance. Because this isn't about aesthetics, it's about alignment. You've moved past surface-level thinking. You're operating from depth, from vision, from a place that sees the blueprint behind the chaos. And that scares the ones who built their identity on illusion. You see patterns they haven't even noticed yet. You call energy before it even shifts. You speak truths that echo long after you leave the room. That's not competition. That's mastery. And when you create your own rhythm, you make their noise irrelevant. Number 6. You're untouchable. Your intuition saw it coming. They can fake the smile, fake the words, fake the love, but they can't fake the energy, and you feel everything. Your intuition is a living shield, silent, invisible, but always locked in. It's the reason you dodge chaos before it forms, the reason you pull back right before betrayal strikes, the reason people who plan to manipulate you end up confused when their tactics fall flat. They don't get it. They thought they could play you, but you already sensed the switch in tone, the hesitation in their energy, the emptiness behind their compliments. You felt it before they even knew what they were doing. You're not paranoid, you're precise. Your mind doesn't just process what's being said, it translates the energy underneath it. You feel lies like static in the air. You sense tension before words catch up. That's not just a gift. It's armor, and it's the reason you're still standing while others got blindsided. Imagine being able to hear a storm before it hits, not through sound, but through pressure in the air. That's how your intuition works. Everyone else sees blue skies. You already smell the rain. You don't need proof. You are the proof. Your life is the evidence. Every time you trusted your gut, you avoided a trap. Every time you doubted it, you paid for it. They can't manipulate you because you're not waiting for red flags. You feel the intentions before the actions even start. You spot shifts in tone, micro-reactions, inconsistencies, the things most people miss. You live in that zone. That's why your presence makes liars uncomfortable. They can't act around you because they know they've already been read. You don't need to fight to protect yourself. Your discernment does it for you. While they try to weaponize charm, you're already 10 steps ahead, moving with quiet clarity. You're not confrontational, you just move different. And that's worse for them, because they can't argue with someone who already exited the room with their truth intact. Your intuition is undefeated. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it never lies. It's your radar, your protection, your silent sword. And the best part, they never see it coming, but you always do. Number 7. Now, they whisper, but you already knew. They laughed when you pulled back, then fell silent when the storm hit exactly where you said it would. Funny how the ones who once called you dramatic, paranoid, or too deep are now whispering about how right you were. The same people who rolled their eyes when you distanced yourself are now quietly watching the chaos you avoided. They thought you were being cold, overthinking, making things up. But you weren't guessing, you were sensing. You didn't need signs carved in stone. You had that inner voice, that knowing that never needed permission to speak. They used to mock it, now they fear it. You never claimed to be supernatural. You're not walking around pretending to predict the future. You just trust yourself, something they've never learned to do. You've mastered the art of letting logic and intuition move together. You don't just see what's in front of you, you feel what's coming. That's not magic. That's intelligence sharpened by experience and tuned by survival. You've avoided storms that swept up everyone else not because of luck, but because you listened to your gut, to patterns, to energy shifts no one else even noticed. While others were distracted by appearances, you were reading signals. While they chased what looked good, you backed off from what felt off. And every time you were right. Imagine someone calling you crazy for stepping out of the ocean early, and then 5 minutes later, a shark fin appears exactly where you were standing. That's how your life plays out. You exit situations right before the damage. You distance yourself from people who seemed nice, only for their true face to come out weeks later. It's not paranoia. It's pattern recognition paired with intuition, and it's never failed you. Now they whisper your name differently, less mockery, more confusion, more respect. Some are even scared to talk to you because they know you see too much. You don't need receipts. You felt the truth before it had time to grow legs. And that kind of power makes people nervous, makes them rethink every interaction, makes them wonder how you always seem to be 3 moves ahead. Let them whisper, let them wonder. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to move wisely, stay ahead, and let the results speak for you. Because when the dust settles and they're left in the mess they mocked you for avoiding, they finally realize you didn't guess. You knew. Number 8. The gift that isolates you is the same one that protects you. They don't leave because you're broken. They leave because they can't reach the level your silence lives on. The truth is, this gift of knowing, of sensing, of seeing, comes at a price. And that price is often isolation. You've felt it. Those quiet exits, the sudden coldness, the unspoken distance people create once they realize they can't hide from your awareness. It hurts sometimes. You ask yourself, am I too much? Why do people fall off the moment I stop dimming my light? But here's the brutal truth. They weren't distancing because you were flawed. They were running from the reflection your presence forced them to see. Your gift doesn't just reveal truth in others. It reveals the lack in them too, and people don't like that. They prefer shallow waters where they can pretend to swim deep. But you've been in the depths, and that makes your energy uncomfortable for people who've only ever mastered the surface. Yes, the road feels lonelier, but it's not empty. It's sacred, because the solitude you walk in, it's the very thing that keeps your peace intact. You're not missing out on fake connections. You're being shielded from energy that would derail your purpose. People who can't handle your insight were never equipped to walk beside your destiny. Let that settle in your bones. Imagine being a high-frequency signal in a world full of static. The noise can't handle your clarity, so it tries to distort you, mute you, make you question your own brilliance. But even in silence, your life speaks louder than their noise. You don't need to yell. You don't need to perform. You exist, and that alone sends shockwaves. They doubt you because imitation always fears authenticity. And when you're operating from real depth, you start exposing how empty their curated lives actually are. Let them call it weird. Let them mock your distance. Because every time they question you, they reveal the difference between them pretending to know and you actually knowing. You've outgrown needing to explain your soul to people who barely know themselves. Let your moves be silent. Let your wisdom move in the shadows. The real ones will feel it. The rest were never meant to. And if this gift makes you walk alone, trust that it also clears the path ahead. Because this isolation isn't punishment. It's precision. It's protection. And it's placing you exactly where you're meant to be, unbothered, aligned, and unstoppable. Number 9. Silence is your flex, and it's breaking them. They don't fear your voice. They fear the fact that you've been silent and still in control. You don't have to raise your voice to prove your power. You don't have to argue, expose, or explain. Your silence alone does what their noise never could. It destabilizes fake confidence. When you don't react, they spiral. When you don't defend, they obsess. You're not quiet because you're weak. You're quiet because you already won. See, real power doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing. You've got clarity where others have confusion. You move with intention while they chase validation. They talk to be seen. You stay silent and still get heard. And that drives them mad, because they can't figure you out, can't bait you, can't read your next move, and that unpredictability. It's a threat they can't control. Imagine this. Two people in a room, one talking non-stop, performing, explaining, trying to prove they're something. The other, still, calm, watching. Guess who owns the room? You already know. You don't need to flex. You are the flex. While they run in circles trying to be relevant, you sit still and shift the whole vibe. That's not detachment. That's dominance. So stay quiet, stay clear, let them talk, because every word they throw just proves they felt your silence first. Number 10, you never needed the credit, you needed the clarity. Let them keep the spotlight. They needed it. You needed the truth, and that's why you're winning. You've always known something they didn't. While they craved attention, you craved understanding. While they were busy building personas, you were decoding reality. That's why they never got you. You didn't want to be seen. You wanted to see clearly. You weren't playing to be liked. You were watching to stay aware, and that alone separated you from the crowd. They mistook your silence for insecurity, your observation for passivity. They thought if you weren't performing, you must not know anything. But you were just processing, taking in everything, logging patterns, tracking energy shifts, sensing lies wrapped in sweet words. They needed validation to feel powerful. You needed clarity to stay grounded. Now that the dust has settled and everything you felt is turning out to be true, they don't know how to act. The same ones who called you too much, too sensitive, or crazy are now watching your life unfold exactly how your intuition warned it would. And here's the wild part. You don't even care about being right. That was never the goal. You didn't want to prove anyone wrong. You just wanted peace, alignment, truth. And you earned it by trusting yourself when no one else could see what you saw. Imagine needing a crowd to feel important. Imagine needing applause to feel real. That's how they live. But you've got something they can't fake. Inner knowing. That's your currency. That's your crown. And now you're walking in a clarity so sharp it slices through every lie they built to trap you. They kept asking, why are you so distant? The real question was, why are you so discerning? They just couldn't admit that your mind saw too much. You made them uncomfortable, not because you were wrong, but because you were always right before it was popular to be. You never needed the credit. You never needed the likes, the applause, or the cosigns. Your reward wasn't fame. It was freedom. Freedom from fake friends. Freedom from manipulative environments. Freedom from the games they play because they can't stand sitting in silence with themselves. And now, as you continue to rise, don't look back for their approval. They already know. They felt it long before they admitted it. You were the sharp one, the wise one, the one who didn't need the spotlight to make an impact. You just needed the truth. And now that you have it, everything's finally clear. Number 11. They wanted to control you, but you became the blueprint. They couldn't control you, so now they imitate you, hoping no one notices who set the standard. They didn't want you to lead, they wanted you to comply. Stay small, stay predictable, stay easier to digest. But you didn't fold. You didn't soften yourself just to fit into their comfort zone. And that refusal, that's what turned their curiosity into fear and their envy into obsession. You didn't just break the mold. They realized you were the mold they'd been trying to copy all along. At first, they rolled their eyes at your silence, called you distant, said you were too intense, too smart for your own good. But behind your back, they were taking notes, studying your behavior, repeating your words, trying to figure out how someone who refused to play the game still somehow ended up ahead. You weren't trying to compete, yet you became the benchmark. You weren't just hard to understand, you were impossible to control. And nothing terrifies manipulators more than someone they can't read, can't bait, and can't break. That's why they tried to downplay you, not because you lacked value, but because you had too much, and they couldn't stand that it didn't belong to them. They saw your stillness as weakness, until they realized still water runs deep. They saw your quiet confidence as arrogance, until they realized your intuition could pierce through every lie they rehearsed. And now, they've gone from trying to control you to copying you. Your phrases, your mindset, even your boundaries. They want your essence, but not your scars. They want your light, but not the pain it took to create it. They want your vision, but not the inner battle that shaped it. Imagine being the original and watching the replicas scramble to figure out what you were born with. That's your life now. And while they may get attention temporarily, they'll never get what you have: alignment. Because your power doesn't come from strategy, it comes from self-trust, from experience, from truth. You didn't study a blueprint. You are the blueprint. So don't shrink when they start imitating. Don't flinch when they act like they never doubted you. Let them copy. Let them repeat. You're already 5 moves ahead, building in silence while they perform for applause. They couldn't own you, so now they follow you. And deep down, they know who really led the way. Number 12. This is your era. Now, let them watch in silence. You moved in silence. Now they have no choice but to sit in it while watching you rise. This isn't just another chapter. This is your era, the season where everything starts aligning, not because the world suddenly became fair, but because you stopped doubting what you always knew. You're not waiting for opportunities. You are the opportunity now, and the ones who once overlooked you, mocked you, tried to break you, they're watching quietly, awkwardly, enviously, because they know it's too late to catch up. You don't have to announce your wins. Your evolution is loud enough without a single word. You don't need to post every move, prove every insight, or explain every boundary. Your energy already told the story. Your peace already screamed the truth. You walked away from the chaos and somehow became more powerful in the process. That silence they once laughed at, now it's the same silence they sit in while your name stays in their head. Imagine a room where everyone once talked over you, and now they fall silent when you walk in. That's the shift. That's the power of staying true to yourself when everyone wanted you to fold. You didn't need to clap back. You let time do the talking. And it did. Brutally. Let them wonder how you're so calm. Let them whisper about how you always seem to be in the right place at the right time. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's the reward for listening when your soul whispered, "Don't go there. Don't trust them. This isn't your lane." You honored that voice. And now the universe is honoring you. They used to doubt you. Now they study you. But don't look back. Don't seek revenge. Don't dim the light just because it's finally shining the way it was always meant to. This is your era, and it was earned. Every scar, every setback, every night you sat in silence trying to make sense of things, it built this moment. So walk like you own it, move like you were always meant to, because this time you're not proving anything, you're just existing, and that alone is proof of your power. Let them watch, let them whisper, let them pretend they didn't see it coming. You're not just rising, you've already risen, and this is only the beginning.